This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone on the Talkstar Radio Network and the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Australia, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. If you'd like to give us a call, worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. That's 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Christala Rosina. And Christala studied languages at l'Institut Français in London, English and psychology at the University of Surrey, where she conducted some of the earliest research into the psychology of music, and education at Greenwich University. Since picking up her poetic pen 8 years ago for the first time since childhood, her award-winning work has been continually featured in journals, anthologies, and on radio. A college lecturer in English and psychology for many years, Christala now devotes most of her time to writing and performing arts. She sings with Imperial Opera London and the English Arts Choral, and launched the first of her poetry concerts just 5 years ago. And since then, she has taken these innovative concerts to a range of UK venues and festivals, giving both lunchtime recitals and full evening performances. Christala's first collection of poetry, Watercolor Essence of the Moon, was published by Publish America in 2006. Psychic and medium mystic herself, and therefore with a great affinity with the romantic poets, especially Shelley, Christala is proud to help lead a romantic renaissance and shares with Shelley his spiritual vision of world ruled by, listen to this, love, not law. A vision, the beginnings of which, despite what seem to many as appearances to the contrary, is already beginning to manifest. And joining me now from the United Kingdom is Christala Rosina. And Christala, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thanks very much, Rob. It's lovely to be here.
I've got to tell you something. I love that. Love, not law.
It is lovely, isn't it? He was writing 200 years ago, so he had quite a task in hand. It's been taking some time to manifest.
But isn't it true that all the wonders that come to pass in this life of ours take the longest to manifest?
I think so. I think they do. Yes, I think they're usually the biggest, often the ones that meet with the greatest resistance, sadly. And therefore, you're absolutely right. They tend to take some time to come to fruition.
Christala, when did you know you were a psychic and medium?
Oh, gosh. I've been told this for quite some time, quite a long time before I actually came to believe it. And I never quite accepted it because I always thought that people who were psychic and mediumistic were very special, and it had to be very special to be that way, and I just couldn't believe that I was quite special enough. And then about 16, 17 years ago, I had to come to believe it because things happened quite disturbingly, unfortunately, which I think is quite often the way that a lot of people do come to realize that they are psychically inclined. And I could no longer doubt it. I just had to accept it. I'd had the signs, if you like, the actual... I hesitate to use this word evidence because
Christala, why don't we do this? You and I have to take a commercial break. We're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here. Exo Nation, Christala Rosina is our special guest. www.christalarosina.co.uk. We'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as the X Zone continues live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network and the X Zone Broadcast Network. Don't go away.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, Old Florida cuisine at its best.
Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, or psychic phenomenon? Join me, Tim Bartley, co-host of Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, coming mid-January 2017 to the XZBN. We will channel spirits live and talk to them, revealing all kinds of amazing information. Spiritual attachments will be found and removed on the show, and so much more. To find out when you can listen to Talking to Spirits with Lightworkers Tim and Justina, visit www.xzbn.net for listeners on both sides of the veil.
Welcome back, everyone. Christala Rosina is our special guest, and we're talking to her all the way from the United Kingdom. Her website is christalarosina.co.uk. And before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about an experience you had that when you discovered how you were a psychic mediumistic, and I was wondering if you could pick up the story.
Yes, sure. Well, I'd moved down to the south coast of England, probably only about 30 or 40 miles from where I am now. I hadn't wanted to go, but I needed a job at the time, and a job came up down there. And I had been very uncomfortable right from the very start, from the very first visit down there. And it seems crazy under the circumstances, feeling that way that I moved, but I felt so pressured to go down there, and went. And the whole time that I was down there, I ended up staying about 18 months. I was absolutely terrified, which sounds very dramatic and very extreme, but that is how it was. And I couldn't explain this terror. Sometimes it was quite literally blind panic, and there was nothing obvious to account for it, and I only eventually found out what it was all about. I eventually got a bit of information from some of my students. One of my classes was an adult class, and a couple of the students got talking to me, and this conversation came up. And they were very interested, and one of them informed me that there was apparently a lot of black magic, as she expressed it. That's the term that she used in the area. Well, that was the first time that I'd had any kind of explanation for this. So it was a relief to get something that made some sense. But it was only just before I was due to leave the area. I ended up fleeing it in terror, really. I handed in my notice. And I was just sort of finishing up, working out my notice, when a friend of mine came down to visit. And it was through her that I learnt about the work of Andrew Collins, who you may or may not have heard of. I think he's quite well known here. And the work he'd been doing psychically in clearing negative energies from various spots around the country. When I say negative energies, that's perhaps a bit too mild. Clearing where negative entities had been somehow, in different ways, contaminating a site. It's too complex for me to say more than that. You'd have to read his books where he goes into it in great detail. And a lot of this apparently had been originating in precisely the spot where I was. And it made absolute sense. All this, suddenly all this terror that I felt in the whole area absolutely made sense by the explanations contained in his work, which had been unearthing these dreadful goings on.
When we're talking about negative energy, are we talking about what some people would call evil?
Yeah, absolutely ghastly stuff. I mean, I'm not his agent. I'm not a promoter of his books, but the particular book that I think concerned the kind of things I was picking up. He's written several books now. It's called The Black Alchemist, and this was the name of a guy who apparently was based down there and was doing some dreadful things. I mean, for example, one day I was very, very busy down there. I was teaching down there, and teaching is quite a killer in this country, and I was working all the hours that there is. And on this particular day, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I'd had enough, and I decided I was just going to treat myself to an hour or two off. And it was a lovely sunny Sunday afternoon, and I was driving out into the country, and the English countryside is very pretty. It's renowned for having a particular prettiness of its own. And I was in a very pretty part of it. An idyllic part, many would say. I was actually heading for a village that was a local beauty spot. And I was just approaching this point, and everything was kind of okay up to then. And I suddenly felt this overriding fear. And I thought, I just didn't want to know. It was a Sunday, it was an afternoon, I was having time off, I really needed that time off. I wanted this break, it was a precious couple of hours. I just wanted to enjoy the sunshine and enjoy the countryside and the families out having a Sunday afternoon off, And I thought, what is this? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. This is what would be described as an idyllic afternoon. Where is this fear coming from? And then I rounded a bend in the road, and I saw it.
Saw what?
And it was the long man of Alfriston. I don't know if you're familiar with these ancient chalk carvings, these huge chalk carvings we have in certain parts of the country here. Well, one of them is down just outside the village of Alfriston on the south coast here. And it's a figure of a man, a walking man, and it's been carved in the hillside a long, long time ago. I'm sure there are people who could give you the exact dates and things. I can't, but these are ancient carvings. The figure is huge. You see it from a distance, and of course it doesn't look so big, but when you get there you can hardly see it at all because it's so huge. And these are sacred sites, and they do have a very particular energy, and the energy certainly is not sinister. The energy certainly once upon a time would have been very positive, and that's why these these images were carved there. But this was the source of I knew at once that this was the source of this fear, and I had no doubt that something had happened. Something had gone, something awful had happened. Someone had been tampering with the energies or something like that. I knew something had been corrupted. And as I say, it wasn't until afterwards that I found out that this was right. And a lot of the energies in this part of the country had been corrupted, and with some very sinister motives.
So how would you actually corrupt a positive energy and turn it into a negative energy then?
Well, for me, it is purely how I feel. I often know whether I'm safe by just how I feel. If I feel frightened, if I feel fear, then things are not okay. It often happens to me on the road when I'm driving. If I want to overtake and I'm on a bend and I can't see, round that corner, if I feel scared, I know it's not safe.
Well, is it safe at any given time? Is it a good idea to pass someone when you can't see around the corner? That would sound like common sense to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said, Rob.
I'm saying that when you were talking about passing someone on a bend when you can't see around the corner, that would seem like common sense to me.
No. When you're driving along on the road and you can't actually see around a bend, and you want to overtake someone, but conventionally it would be dangerous to overtake,
right,
because you can't actually see round the bend.
Exactly.
And you can't see whether there's an oncoming car. Mm-hmm. You must remember this is England, and we probably have a lot narrower roads than you. And a lot of them are country lanes, and they are windy, especially where I live. So you literally cannot see. If you're approaching a bend, you can't see beyond. You cannot see if it's safe to overtake at that point. There might be a car coming from the other direction, but if you're on a bend, you can't see that. And so really, you shouldn't overtake. You should wait until you've got a clear stretch of road and you can see. Well, one thing that works for me, I don't always follow it, but even when I don't follow it, obviously it's after I've gone round the bend, as it were, and I'm on the straight stretch, and I know whether I've been right or not. I usually know whether or not it's safe to overtake by how I feel. If I feel frightened, if I feel scared, then usually it's not safe to overtake. There's a car around the corner that I can't see, and that really lets me down. But that's how it works with me for positive and negative energies. If I feel, and that's pretty reliable, if I feel scared, there's something negative going on. I won't always know what it is. I won't always be able to put my finger on it. But there'll be something that isn't quite right.
So you really trust your instincts?
For me, yeah, they usually do work, especially when I'm out and about like this. A lot of what I've been talking about has been referring to...
Listen, you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Please stand by. Exonation, our very special guest of this hour is Christala Rosina. Her website is christalarosina.co.uk. And Christala and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the Exxon continues. We're right here on the Talkstar Radio Network from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is the Exxon Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401 0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. Christala Rosina is our special guest. Her website is christalarosina.co.uk. Christala, what is this most spookiest encounter you have ever had psychically?
Goodness me. I think some of the ones I had down on the south coast, as I was just talking about, including that, were amongst them. But another one, it was kind of both spooky and uplifting at the same time. It was very special. It was Christmas Eve, and I was at home, and I wasn't very well. I was hoping to go and drive over to my parents for Christmas Day, but I'd already realized that I probably wasn't going to be well enough to do that. And I was feeling a tad sorry for myself, and I was mooching about the kitchen, doing things in the kitchen. And when I heard this little whirring noise coming from my lounge, and through the sort of mild fog of not being, sort of 100% well, I kind of thought, what's that? And I figured that my video had come on. This is before the days of DVDs. And I was a little surprised because I realized that I hadn't set it to come on. Anyway, I was, how it is when you're not too well. Things don't always bother you as much as, you're not kind of 100% focused. And I just carried on doing what I was doing. And I could hear this thing, sort of whirring away in the background. And then eventually it switched off. But it bugged me because I thought, I'm sure I didn't set that to record. And I went back and checked. And I hadn't set it to record. And I thought, well, what is going on here? Why did that come on when it came on? And why did it go off when it went off? And how long was it on for? And then I thought, well, what on earth was on when it was on? And was it recording anything? And I discovered that it had come on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It had switched on to channel 3. It had stayed on recording. It had actually recorded for 30 minutes, so that's another 3. And the program it had been recording, the program that had been broadcasting at that time on that channel, was the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another 3. And quite a choice film. And I thought, well, but which part of the film? The film is more than 30 minutes long. Why did it come on at that point? Why that half an hour? And I rewound the tape and had a look to see what was going on. And it had come on just at the point when, in the film, the alien energy is switching on the electrical equipment, disrupting the electrical equipment in the house. And I thought, wow, this is too much of a coincidence. And nothing like this had happened before. And I thought, what else is going on in this half-an-hour segment that it's recorded? Why is it recorded this 2.5 hours? So I sat there and watched it through. And apart from the starting point, when the energy was switching on the electrical things in the house, I couldn't make much more sense of it. And I was telling a friend of mine later on in the day about this episode. And she had been traveling the world recently and had taken a lot of photos, and I'd been expressing an interest in seeing these photos and hearing all about her trip. So she brought the photos round, and one of the photos I'd been telling her, now you're going to have to help me out with this, in that stretch of the film, what is the mound, the name of the mound, the hill, in that stretch of the film that's featured? It's a particular mound.
It's called Devil's Tower.
That's it. That's the one, the Devil's Tower. And I was telling her that, this bit had come up in the film, and she said, we've been there on our trip, and I've got photos of it. And she was showing me the photos of it, and then the conversation went elsewhere, and, we talked about the rest of it. And I was conveying all this to another friend at a later date. This is a friend who has a great interest in these kinds of things, and in fact is connected with the group of people I mentioned, a particular author earlier on, who was doing a lot of psychic work into particular sites in Britain. And I came to meet him later on and read his books and attend some of his conferences and so forth, and met some of the other people who were involved in this work. And one of them became a particular friend. And I was talking to him and telling him about this. And he was in the midst of writing a book of his own, continuing some of these things. And he had been particularly after a picture of the Devil's Tower for his book. And this was pre-internet, or if the internet was up and running, it was certainly in the early days. You didn't just go there to find a picture, And he just hadn't been able to find a photo for this book. And I was telling him about this. And he said, well, I need this photo. I've been trying to get this photo. Will your friend allow me to use her photo? And so anyway, I put them in touch, and I'm sure she was quite happy to let him use the photo. But it was just amazing that I was unwell, and this was also in the fairly, you were asking at the beginning, when we were talking at the beginning, when I first discovered. This was not long after I came back from the South Coast, and not long after I discovered that, okay, I'm probably going to have to admit that, these people who'd been telling me that I was psychic and mediumistic were probably right.
So what do you think the connection was, or why do you think that whatever the forces may have been that triggered your VCR to start recording Close Encounters of the Third Kind at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for 30 minutes, what was the ultimate message, and what do you believe the ultimate reason was?
I think partly it was my own guides reassuring me, because it was the time of year that it was, and feeling unwell, and kind of feeling sorry for myself as one does in those kind of circumstances, and knowing that I wasn't going to be able to get away for Christmas Day.
But why Close Encounters? Why not a Christmas story, for example, part of a Christmas Carol, or some other of the most wonderful Christmas TV shows? I'm confused by the choice of Close Encounters of a Third Kind.
I think it was a combination of, as I say, what I was just saying about doing something that would make me sit up and think, there's something going on here, and is somebody trying to tell me something? And that is that they are here. But also, I think the connections, I think they knew that I would... The three connections, there's another three that happened, but between myself and my friend and the other friend who needed the picture, I think they were making connections that they knew I would appreciate. They knew I would appreciate those communications, and those communications happening in a non-conventional way.
When you said...
They knew I would appreciate that. And I think they also... They knew that this friend of mine was after that photo and wanted that photo, and they knew that other friend of mine...
Well, wait a sec here. Who you keep on saying they knew. They knew. Who are they?
My own guides, my own spirit guides.
Prior to
flawed you, Rob.
Pardon?
That seems to have flawed you.
No, I'm just trying to be... I'm having a hard time following the connection between Close Encounters of a Third Kind, your spirit guides, and Christmas. If the VCR would have gone on and it recorded, one of the Christmas shows that touch us all at Christmas time, that to me would be more more significant than Close Encounters of a Third Kind at Christmas.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, but I don't think it would have been of so much significance to me. I'm not religious, not in the conventional sense, and I think if they had switched on some Christmassy show, I'm really not sure. You know, I would have been looking for some significance, and they would have known that I would have been doing that.
Is it possible that your VCR could have been preset and you forgot about it? And
no.
Tell me, was it a remote control? Was it a remote control VCR? Is it possible that somebody in the neighborhood could have actually been setting their VCR and set your VCR at the same time?
Well, I couldn't comment on the technicalities because I'm just not a technical person. I don't know how the whole thing works. But I think it's unlikely because I'm quite happy to consider these ordinary explanations. I don't throw them away, you know. I don't go into these things all sort of starry-eyed and insist that we have an unconventional explanation the way that some people insist purely on conventional explanations. And I considered all of this.
Yeah.
But I think not, because, for a start, when I record a program, I use the automatic thing. You know, I code in the number.
Right.
So it will go in at the beginning of the program, and it will record the whole program. So that was one thing that got me. This came on mid-program. And it didn't even record the whole, what's on, it didn't even record the whole of that program. It just recorded 30 minutes of it.
Oh, prior to the recording.
That was one interesting question.
Prior to the recording of the Close Encounters of a Third Kind, did you have an interest in UFOs and alien presence here on this planet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have an interest in all of these things that count as the, the non-orthodox, if you like. It's difficult to find a generic term. You know, you use the paranormal, don't you, as a term to cover it. I mean, that will do as a generic term. Yes, I'm interested in all of those things. Mm-hmm.
And when did your interest in all of this start?
I think it's always been there. I'm not aware of any particular start date. I think it's just always been there. And I would have tuned in, you know, when articles came up in the press or in other parts of the media, or if I saw a book or something like that, I would have tuned in. And I think if when you are interested in these things, you get leads into other areas where there's some information about those things, don't you?
So you had already been interested in what we call the paranormal prior to your gifts kicking in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. It just, as I said, it took a while for me to fully accept that I had those gifts. But that was really, I think, to do with my own confidence and my own self-belief rather than anything else.
What is it that makes you believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the paranormal is real, spiritual, and not manifested by the person who experiences the paranormal event?
Well, that's very interesting. My goodness, that's a deep question. We're getting into mirrors here, perception and perception of perception. Well, for a start, and I think this is the root of it really, if you need to think about history and how we have come to understand things, anything, whatever we know and understand about the world, everything that we accept as truth, everything that we accept as fact, if you prefer that word to truth. At any point in history, the further back you go, in recorded history, let's just take sort of relatively recent recorded history. I mean, let's say the last sort of 2,000 years or something. I'm not going back eons and eons yet. The further back you know, the less we've known. And, and going the other way, the closer we get to today, the more that we have come to know. So the point is that at any point in history, we've never had the full story. There's always been more to know. And every time we research something, and in the last 2,000 years or so, this has chiefly been done through science, through scientific method and approach. Every time we investigate something, the truth turns out to be greater than we formerly thought it to be. Science is forever surprising people. It's forever surprising its own adherents. Every time we research something, whether it's about animals, non-human animals, or plants, or the planet, or space beyond this particular planet.
Christala, you and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Christala Rosina is our special guest. ChristalaRosina.co.uk. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
18 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation, whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials. How we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Exonation, Christala Rosina is our special guest. Her website is christalarosina.co.uk. We've got about 3 minutes left, Christala. First of all, I want to thank you very much for joining us here tonight on the X-Zone. And I was wondering if we could just finish up or wrap up your response to my last question, whether or not it's actually paranormal or the manifestation of the person who's experiencing the event.
Well, as I was saying, if we look at how we have learned all our knowledge so far, every time we research something, we find that the truth is greater than we imagined it to be before. So, therefore, when people experience these things that we don't fully understand right now, and are not fully accepted by a lot of people right now, who is to say that these things are not true? Who is to say that these things are not fact? Maybe a lot of what seems elusive and ungraspable right now and has a lot of question marks over it right now. Isn't that how all truths once were? I mean, the Earth still orbited the Sun when everybody thought the Sun orbited the Earth. You know, that incorrect belief.
Yeah, but you would think by now, with all the people out there who claim to be investigators, researchers, and self-proclaimed experts in every aspect of the paranormal, that some proof would have been brought forward by now, but none has.
But why?
Maybe because
why
it doesn't.
there have been...
Well, because maybe it's just a manifestation of their own over-imaginative imaginations, and that there is no paranormal. Maybe the paranormal is a self-protective mechanism for blaming or for justifying actions that humans take.
Firstly, I think there is so much experience across humanity and across different fields. I mean, you were asking me whether I was interested in UFOs, and which suggests that you treat that as a subject in its own right. And I like to, and I said I was interested in all these things that come under this kind of generic label of the paranormal, and that divides into an awful lot of individual subjects. But across those individual subjects, there are an awful lot of people having an awful lot of similar experiences.
You know, you and I have just run out of time for tonight. I want to take this opportunity of thanking you very much, and continued success in your quest. Personally, I believe that the weird, the wacky, the bizarre really had nothing to do with your VCR turning on. I put it to a more logical explanation that for some reason you did not want to pursue, because maybe it just filled that specific need, that gap, that you were feeling down. It was Christmas time, and you took this as a sign, which is okay, but don't forget the possibility, which I believe is greater than the improbability, that there's a very logical explanation to it, and spirituality and spirits had nothing to do with it. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.